Offseason is about to get started for the Brooklyn Nets. Draft is coming up. Free agency is right around the corner. So, got to talk to my guy who covers the Nets for the New York Post, Brian Lewis. Brian, how you doing, sir?
All right. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I feel like for you, you haven't had any games to cover in a while in terms of basketball with the Nets. So, you've been in offseason mode for quite some time. And this is an interesting offseason for the Nets. And I want to start with the draft with you, right? Because they've got the 8th pick. They've got 4 picks in the first round. They have 5 picks in the top 36.
Right.
What's the Nets strategy going into this draft? Is it keep all the picks? Is it try to use some to move up, trade for a player? What do you think the strategy is going to be going here?
Okay. Now, you know I'm far too stingy to actually bet my money. So I'm not telling anybody to wager anything.
Don't do that.
But my supposition is that you'll see them consolidate some of these picks. Listen, 5 picks in the top 36, that's a lot just for logistic reasons. You can't, it's hard for them to actually develop 5 children at the same time. You just can't, do it, right? You can't give them your undivided attention and put enough into them to develop them. So barring some weird perfect storm where, I don't know, you're drafting a 23-year-old 36 and have 2 guys that you can stash at 26 and 27, barring something weird like that, I would expect, considering they only have 1 first-round pick next year, and next year's draft is supposed to be every bit as deep as this year's draft, I would think that they will probably look to consolidate, either punt a pick into next year or at some point, the future, 27, whatever, or combine picks and move up in the draft. Now, moving up is a vagary. That can include a lot of things, whether that's moving up because they were kind of disappointed with where they landed in the lottery. They went in with the 6th seed and ended up 8th.
Right.
So that can be moving up in the lottery, or, which I personally think maybe even more likely, is combining picks in the bottom of the first round. And whether you combine picks or combine a pick and a player, moving up and trying to get a second lottery pick. That I could definitely see.
Okay.
What I'm stunned at, though, is the thought of them actually making all 5 of these picks and trying to roster 5 rookies.
That seems very unlikely, as you mentioned, that you, especially in today's NBA, where you're trying to maneuver the cap and, stable.
That's hard to do.
It's hard
man.
to do.
You can't develop all those guys. Plus, remember, Noah Clowney's still, I think, 20.
Right, still a young
Derek
player.
Whitehead is like 20, and he needs development because he basically lost a year. So I don't think you can develop 5 rookies and 2 other guys that are essentially the age of rookies.
Yeah, that's really tough. Now, I think fans will also hear this and say, okay, they've got the 5 picks in the top 36, the 4 in the first round. Oh, we could use some of that to maybe trade for a star. And the star's name that's been out there and sort of rumored around the Nets is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, we don't know what Giannis wants to do. We don't know if he still wants to stay in Milwaukee. We don't know if he has interest in coming to Brooklyn. None of that is known yet. But do you think the Nets would think about maybe packaging some of the picks, whether it's some combination of the ones this year or some that they have down the road coming from the Knicks, that they'd want to use that and try to move for a star like Giannis?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
There's a lot.
So I'll try to do this briefly.
Okay.
When you say a star like Giannis, there aren't stars like Giannis.
That I have to actually acknowledge. There is no star.
Right?
He's a top 3 player in the world we're talking about, right?
There's a lot of guys that are getting paid.
Right. So let's
that are not Giannis.
Let's rephrase that with the unpacking.
Okay.
If you can go for a superstar.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say like Giannis because there's only few in his ilk.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But then even if you want to say below that, if you want to try to even package that for a star player, is any of that, superstar star, is any of that in the Nets' plans?
I do not think they have any interest. I think you gave up a lot of equity to go back and get not only your 25 natural pick, but also their 26 natural pick. You do that because you are, frankly, tanking to get 2 lottery picks that you're going to build around.
Right.
Now, I think there's one guy out there, reasonably speaking, right, that was going to be able to convince them to move off of their tank and accelerate their process. That one guy was Giannis.
Right.
All right? Giannis, I can tell you, Giannis likes it in New York. He comes here frequently. He visits. He has business ventures that he owns in New York, and he does business with other people in New York. However, that being said, I would never presume to tell you what is in his head. What I would say is this. People that have a good grasp of the situation have told me they do not expect him to basically take a flamethrower to the Bucks to get out. That's just not in his character. That's not his way. He's not going to make it stink and act a fool to get out of Milwaukee. And they don't have any interest in trading him. So at this juncture, if he's not going to force his way out and they're not going to willingly trade him, people around the league went from, in the immediate aftermath of the season, basically expecting him to leave,
Yes.
to now viewing him as somebody that is off the table. So I would not expect him to be in Brooklyn. If he goes elsewhere, fine, maybe. But I don't expect him to be in Brooklyn, and I frankly don't expect him to be anywhere other than Milwaukee. And there is no other player, whether other players move, whether Trey gets moved or Ball gets moved or Sabonis gets moved or whatever, I don't expect the Nets to move off of their tank for any of those players. I fully expect another season next year of tanking, playing these various rookies that they're going to draft. And then you come up next summer, summer of 26, having these guys with a year of experience, having another lottery pick, and having cap room, because I fully expect them to punt some of their cap room into next summer.
And as we get to this summer, and I think I'll wrap with this, is do you expect the Nets to be active in free agency? Because the plan is, as you said, I know they want to use the T word, but continue tanking. There's a likelihood that next season looks a lot like this past season that we saw.
It could look worse. If you're playing a bunch of rookies.
It could be worse. You're playing a bunch of rookies.
Yeah.
We saw this season, and you and I talked about this in many videos, how good of a coach Jordy Fernandez is. And I think the Nets feel like they found their coach with Jordy Fernandez. But free agency, what kind of players do you think they might try to get to come to Brooklyn? Will they be active players in free agency at all, or is it, finding some veterans that'll take the minimum, or maybe want to mentor some guys? What do you think they can do this summer, and how active they would be?
Again,
or not be? Yes.
Yeah, again, I don't want to be too draconian about this, but I do expect them to be active.
Okay.
I don't expect them to be active in free agency. I think their cap room, listen, certainly I'm not speaking for Sean Marks. He can do whatever he's going to do, and he's pretty quiet. Right. He likes to work in stealth mode. And there are free agents out there that they could sign. It's not a great free agent class, but there are a number of restricted free agents. Of course, they could take a shot on Jonathan Kuminga. I don't think it's happening. They could take a shot on Josh Giddey. I don't think it's happening. I don't think their plan is to go make offer sheets to restricted free agents. I think the plan with their cap room, and they should have $50 million in cap room, is to use that cap room in trades, whether they are taking a salary dump outright, say Boston, who's facing the possibility of paying $500 million in salary, whether Boston needs to get off of Kristaps Porzingis, and the Nets say, well, I'll take a $30 million expiring contract into my cap space, but you're going to have to make it worth my while to do it. First round pick or what have you.
Right.
Or facilitating trades, being that third team in a trade, right? So if Phoenix is trading Kevin Durant, I am in no way telling Net fans that I think Kevin Durant is coming back, but that doesn't mean the Nets aren't involved in a Kevin Durant trade.
Right.
They could certainly be a third team to facilitate a Kevin Durant trade to Team X. All right? There are a lot of trades that are going to come down, either on draft night or shortly thereafter. It's going to be really, really busy. At least that's what people around the league have been saying ever since the Combine. So the Nets are the only team with legitimate cap space. So they can facilitate this trade, facilitate that trade. That's where I think their cap room is going to go. Maybe you end up trading one of your veteran players, whether that's Cam Johnson or Nick Claxton or whatever. They can use cap space to take back a bad contract and get picks in those trades. Maybe you package Cam with one of your lower picks and move up into a lottery spot.
That's a possibility.
So I think the cap space is going to be weaponized. It's not something that's going to be used directly to go out and take free agents, but it will be weaponized to get assets and more picks, or possibly like a young, controllable guy on his rookie contract.
Right. So the Nets could be very active this offseason. Just might not be the way you think in terms of signing free agents, but they could use the cap space, as Brian just mentioned. We will see what the Nets are able to do this offseason. That is Brian Lewis, the great beat reporter covering the Brooklyn Nets for us here at the New York Post. Stay tuned for more news around the Nets as we see what they do in the upcoming draft and NBA free agency.